Xenophobic and harmful opinions are in no way justified. But when England's significantly rising support of UKIP causes significant backlash and tension between that country, its people, and the international community, we say that we ought not do something like the policy that Proposition wishes to propose, because it creates significant harm for the refugees who want to live in these areas in the first place. We bring you the team line on side opposition that not only do we harm the strong's ability to help the weak, but we harm the weak's ability to help themselves. Let's get into some context of this debate, of which it has been severely lacking. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, this is a legal obligation that side proposition are imposing on people, purely based on altruism. They can't just assume that this is just a decision that everyone will agree with and everyone will accept, because it's just an altruistic ideal. There is no pre-existing legal obligation that binds states to accepting refugees. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, there's a power asymmetry between the ICC and the member state of the International Criminal Court. We say that the ICC isn't omnipotent and it can't prosecute every single country in the entire world. We say that that individual country can opt out of the ICC if it so chooses. We say that no thank you, because of this dynamic that exists between these two individual entities, there's a significant power advantage that lies on the side of the ICC, and that's going to become important. But thirdly, we just agree that state sovereignty is in fact a thing. We think that people have an obligation to support the individual entities or the individual people of their own country. We say that if there's going to be significant backlash, like violence in South Africa after people come from Kenya and other parts of Africa into that country, we say that we ought to limit that in order to protect, no thank you, the significant harms against those individuals. We also think that it's just a straw man to say that the UNHCR is a company or at least an organization which doesn't work to retrieve any means. We say that it establishes safe zones on the borders in significantly safe areas and provides them with military protection in order to ensure that they can survive until zones are better able to realize, or until those zones are better able to integrate them back into that society and back into that community. No, thank you. We think that just by assuming that these don't work and saying that it's going to be better that they live in an environment where they're constantly hated and can't get a job is just an assumption, and it can't be won just off that basis. But first of all, that side proposition actually needs to prove that this is legally allowable and legally permissible before that they can say we should just do things because of altruism and just do things because it's the best thing to objectively do. We don't think that that is something that they can prove. No, thank you. They need to prove that the ICC needs to have this obligation. So let's deal with some rebuttal. So we've already showed you as to why the UNHCR actually does have some significant power in protecting people. But even if their characterization is true, they haven't dealt with the principle of the matter. We say that it's a principle that refugees are an issue of the entire world as a collective whole, and therefore should be funded by every state individually. We say that the entity that can best represent that funding, and not a direct obligation, is the UNHCR. We say that that principle still stands because all that they attacked was some outcomes based on that principle not being true. We say that that's harmful to their case. Second of all, they just don't understand the concept of xenophobia. Maybe it's something that I'm just like, it's closer to home for me, but people actually do feel the strains of being in a country where they cannot be hated. No, thank you. We would rather put you in a situation where natural and organic change can reintegrate you back into your own society before you feel as if you can be harmed in Kenya or South Africa. We say that that's very harmful, ladies and gentlemen. No, thank you. Thirdly, we need to actually analyze what Proposition are actually doing. It sounds like what they're doing is they're prosecuting people for not letting people find asylum after due legal process, or not forcing those refugees to go through that due legal process. So all that you're doing, side Proposition, is you're incentivizing some sort of mass immigration into countries like Australia, capable states that all they can do is accept many individuals, and all that you do is you create a group of people heading to a place for work. You solidify the xenophobic's belief that these people are only here to steal jobs. We say that that's harmful, ladies and gentlemen. We think, no, thank you. People should go through the policy should be prosecuting people for literally just turning them away at the border. We think that that would be a stronger case, but we don't think that that's what you have made it. My matter directly clashes with the rest of the second speaker's matter. So let's deal with that. My matter deals with the ICC as a global actor, right? We say that it's an international entity that derives its legitimacy and its ability to function from the necessary buy-in of the international community and individual countries. Its reputation, and therefore its further ability to gain international support, is hinged on how other countries engage with it. We say that this argument has three separate conclusions. First of all, that this policy harms the ICC's reputation. Second of all, that this harms the ability of the ICC to prosecute important and significant crimes of magnitude committed by evil people. And thirdly, that this is an opportunity cost, or this opportunity cost is made considerably worse when you consider the other effective alternatives in order to protect people, like the UNHCR. No, thank you. So we say that this policy, what side proposition are actually doing is creating a legal obligation, a prosecutable crime. So what does this do to countries? We say that the country in question is less likely to opt into significant discourse about refugees. Why is that? Because the only claim that the ICC actually have to this policy is an altruistic claim. They say that this is just something that would be nice if you did it, please do it. We say that no existing legal binding which implicitly or even explicitly forces the obligation of refugees into individual countries. We say that this policy forces a country into a situation of tension. We say that member country, no thank you, wishes to be a part of the ICC because of the benefits that kind of be accrued from the ICC and the status quo, but has to conform to all of its ideals, including this one. We say that this creates some sort of tension between that member country and the ICC. It no longer wants to interact on the same grounds. We say that this tension is harmful for two reasons. First of all, there's a power imbalance. We say, I'll take you within a second, that the country has the potential to opt out, and regardless of whether or not that opt-out is likely, that option still exists. We don't want to create the ICC. We don't want them to engage into a dynamic where there are significantly less power within the negotiation. But what do you have to say?
The country in the world with the highest percentage of refugee population is Pakistan, a relatively conservative country. In that nation, all of your arguments don't apply, and the refugee situation is not burdened by xenophobia. Well, why is anything you say true?
Because that's a nice minority case, right? We would say that situations in England are particularly bad, like people who don't like people immigrating from Eastern Europe and stealing their jobs. We say that's harmful. We say that in South Africa, people that come from other parts of Africa into that country get killed on a daily basis. We say that in Australia, the majority of people within that country don't like the idea of foreign people coming onto their shores. And we also think that there are individuals within Pakistan who probably dislike the idea as well and are causing significant harm. But onto the real argument. We say that the second problem with this tension is that the member country is able to control feedback about the International Criminal Court and then can lay claim to its legitimacy. We say that why does this tension make it harder for the International Criminal Court? We say that it has limited political capital. It has only done 8 cases in the entirety of its existence. We say that most countries won't want to deal with the legal obligation of this policy, which creates a significant burden onto themselves. You're going to get backlash from very powerful countries, not just Pakistan, but India, but China, and Australia. These countries have significant capital, and they're going to be able to use it to make the ICC's reputation seem moot. We say that that's harmful. We also think that this minimizes the political capital, and then this harms the mandate and the consistency of the thing itself. We say that this shouldn't be the main focus of the ICC. If there are real problems within the country like genocide, aggression, anger, and violence, that should be the main political capital that should be used. We say that when you lay claim to its legitimacy and create significant damage, all that you do is make the ICC weaker in targeting these real cases. Ladies and gentlemen, we proved that it harms your reputation, it makes the ICC harder to act, and that the opportunity cost of dealing with real crimes becomes significant. It not only hurts the strong's ability to help the weak, but it also harms the weak's ability to help themselves. We are proud to oppose.
I'd like to thank Stephen for his speech. To conclude the substantive case from side proposition, I'd like to invite the third proposition, Deborah Wong.
Hello? Hello. Can you closer? Push it up. Sorry about that. Even if we accepted all the harms that came from side opposition, you must recognize one thing, that we are the only side in this debate that is going to do any form of good for these refugees. Because the only alternatives we heard were that the UNHCR exists and that there are other countries for people to go to. Here's the problem. The UNHCR may allocate people who register with them. But the problem that we face today is that there is a lack of willing host countries that will accept these refugees. That's why we're implementing this policy, because now everybody who is capable is a host country. This is the only way to make sure that there's space for these people. Let's take a look at this debate from two different angles. First, do these states have a responsibility to take care of these refugees? Does this meet the standards of a crime against humanity? And second, I'm going to talk about the effects of this and the trade-offs that we have to make in terms of the treatment of these refugees, and second, the support that we have for the ICC. First issue, do they have a responsibility? Because basically what they told us was that just because, this is a contested figure, right? That just because this is a good thing to do, just because you give refugees a place to stay, doesn't mean that it's something good, right? They told us that we have to prove necessity. Here's what I was already talking to you about. It is necessary when Rohingyas flee Myanmar and come to all these different countries and they just die on the way there because there is no host country that is willing to accept them. That's why it's necessary, because there is nobody willing to open their shores to them. But then let's take a look at what they told us then, their other alternative, right? That they can just stay in their countries where they're being oppressed and enact some kind of natural organic change. Apart from that, that doesn't seem to have worked in a lot of countries that have suffered in conflict for a very long time. We think that it's a lot more likely that this so-called organic change is better when these people who are facilitating the change can enact it from the outside, right? An example, Malala, when she was taken out of the country that she was in, she was able to enact a lot of change, right? She was able to raise a lot of awareness about the issues that were in her home country. We think it's a lot more better for these, if you want to have organic change, to increase awareness from the outside. But then what is it then that we heard, like the only thing that we really heard from them was this, that it is impossible at the end of the day because there's no such thing as a capable country. Apart from that, this motion assumes that there must be some. Here's the thing, we think that at worst, even if there is some overcrowding after a while when we send them to these different countries, we think it's better that we at least help some of them. What then at the end of the day is the standard that we set? What did we hear from them? We told you that it was an intentional act of imposing grievous harm upon them. And even if they didn't intend to do so, it was an act of omission, right? Because if they had a responsibility, if they knew that something was going to happen, if they turned them away, they would do that, right? We didn't really hear much of a response to that because, I don't know, maybe they didn't understand it. But look, we think it's definite, right? That if you turn someone away, that they will be harmed by what you do, right? Because even if these people manage to find some other country that will take them in, they will still be suffering things like mental harm, hunger, oppressive conditions when they live only in a boat. And that's something that we will not stand for. But let's take a look at the second idea in terms of the trade-offs and effects. Before that, yes.
So you're conceding that part of your policy, which says you will send people to other countries if there's not enough space, is harmful because in that model, people have to spend time on boats. There's things like disease that you just said are particularly harmful to refugees.
Here's the thing, in both sides, there will be refugees who come to other countries on boats because it's not as if they can afford or they can afford to have flights like you and I. But let's take a look at this second idea then, the effects that come here. First off, in terms of the treatment of these refugees. Let's compare what exactly occurred. Basically, they told us this. Refugees will be treated badly because people don't like them, there's no political will to protect them. But here's the thing, there's already a standard duty of care that is set for these countries once they accept them, right? If these countries violate that, they will be tried for another crime against humanity, right? Considering then that it's very likely that they've accepted these people, we don't think that we're going to treat them that badly. But let's take a look at what their real problem was, right? Xenophobia. What were the factors that make xenophobia happen, right? First, that people feel that they are stealing resources, that they're stealing jobs. But let's analyze who these people are. These are probably not highly skilled individuals who have degrees who will be accepted by countries all across the world, right? These are probably people with low skill jobs, right? With low skills, right? And when they come to these different countries, what kinds of jobs are they really going to take? It's more likely that they're going to be taking the kinds of jobs that capable countries, their citizens don't want to take, right? Privileged people who want to work the higher jobs, who want to do certain things like dishwashing or being a cashier. We don't think that's necessarily good. But even if we accept, that it's a harm, that people do not want to protect these people, why is it then that we must still continue doing this? Because political will is not the be-all, end-all of something that we do. Because what exactly did we tell you from the first speech, right? That there's a reciprocal duty between the ICC and members of, and signatories of the Roman Statute, right? That they receive certain benefits from being a signatory of the Roman Statute. They receive protection and they receive certain benefits. What happens now when they do not concede to the kinds of values that they hold, right? Because in the Geneva Convention, it specifically says, right, that we protect the lowest common denominator. It says that we protect the most vulnerable in our society. If signatories do not adhere to this, we do think that they're being inhuman. But let's do the trade-off here, right? Even if in our worst case, right, these people are treated badly, they don't have friends there, they are being treated with racism and a lack of luxuries. We think that is preferable to what's going to happen inside opposition, right? That these people will die and suffer just as they were going to die and suffer back at home. We think that at least if we give them some form of hope, that's better than what we're having today. But let's take a look at when it is more likely for them to gain traction in accepting these refugees, right? When are people going to be more likely to be open to this? Is it when we are allowed to believe that we can be separate from them? When we are allowed to believe that the divide is legitimate? Or is it when we see that these people are coming to our shores and we need to interact with them on some level? We think it's more likely when you force a kind of interaction there, and that's when you're going to be, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to combat any form of xenophobia. But let's take a look at the second effect that we're talking about here in terms of support for the ICC. What did we hear in the second speaker? He told us that it harms the reputation of the ICC and their ability to prosecute the crimes. But the funny thing is this, we didn't hear any response to the analysis coming from my second speaker just now, because he told you that when you do this, you win over the war-torn nations that exist right now that are not signatories of the Roman Statute, right? Why is it that they are not signatories, right? Countries, states in like African states, right? Because they feel like they're being victimized by the ICC. Because they feel that because the ICC only prosecutes, they are not protecting them. What does this mean? It means that now they believe that ICC is on their side, wants to protect them, wants to protect the people, African people who are fleeing their states. It means that they are more likely to want to become allies, right, of the ICC. And this is so important because with the help of these African states, that's when you are able to get the help that you need to prosecute, right, actual committers of a crime against humanity who are more often than not, from these African states. But then let's take a look at what basically was the idea here. That, you move away countries like India and China. First of all, right, India and China are already not a signatory of the Roman Statute. We don't think you're shooing them away in any way. But